For more on this, let's bring in Jim Walsh, international security expert and senior research associate at the MIT Security Studies Program. Jim, thanks for being here.
Good to be with you.
A lot to get to here, but first let's get to the president's comments on this. He's really keeping his cards close to the vest on this, saying he doesn't want to telegraph his plans. Is that a good strategy for us?
Well, I think on the one hand, you don't want to tell everyone everything you know, but you also want to be clear in your messaging. You want to be able to communicate to North Korea, to China, and to your own allies some messages that they hear, receive, and take seriously. Well, I think we're in early days. We're just after this summit. It seems to have some legs. It may be paying off for the president, and it's a very delicate situation. And you never know, if it's Monday, will the North Koreans test on Tuesday or Friday? So I think it's wise that he doesn't box himself in. I don't think he should be out there saying, well, if you do this, we're going to strike militarily, because then if they do test and you don't respond and your bluff has been called, then you're in a weaker position.
Wall Street Journal, Washington Bureau Chief Jerry Seib wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal this morning saying that the key question in all of this is China serious about working with the U.S. to crank up the pressure on Pyongyang? What is your response to that?
Well, I think we're going to have to wait and see, but I would say the early signs are good. Now, North Korea did not conduct a nuclear test. I and many of my colleagues thought that might happen over the weekend. It didn't happen, and one has to wonder whether China's indirect threat of cutting off oil supplies, if the North were to test, might have had an influence there. And so I think we're in early days, but if we're going to get out of this action-reaction cycle that we've been in for more than 15 years, this is an opportunity to do it, to try to put it on a different track, to work with China. Now, China has its own interests. It's not going to squeeze North Korea to the point of collapse. It doesn't want a failed nuclear weapon state on its border, but China can play a central role in trying to move this to a more stable and less threatening situation.
Because trade is such a big deal when talking about North Korea and China. Do those economic threats, like you mentioned, oil and trade, do they work?
Well, I would say oil could be a potentially very powerful weapon. Trade, less powerful. But there's no running a country without energy, and the North Koreans are dependent on that Chinese oil. So I think that really is a lever. As far as trade more generally, we have sanctioned that and sanctioned that. My partner and I, John Park from Harvard, went and interviewed North Korean defectors to say, how are you beating the sanctions? And we finally got a view on that. And sort of the big picture is they're innovative. They react. They take countermeasures, and we sort of keep doing the same thing over and over again. So our sanctions, even though in name they have been tougher, in effect they really haven't slowed the North Koreans down.
So Seib went on to write, here's a real less obvious test of whether China's serious about working with President Trump to reel in North Korea. Will China stop resisting the installation of a new missile defense system in South Korea?
Yeah, I just disagree with that whole premise. Whether it's powerful international countries or a husband and wife in a marriage, you don't have a relationship in which one party gets everything and the other party gets nothing. Now, Trump and Xi had a good had a good summit. It seems like Xi is stepping up to the plate and trying to do something about North Korea. But if we turn around and give them nothing, that's going to be a short-lived relationship. And the two things that China wants vis-a-vis North Korea, they want a beginning again of the six-party talks or some sort of discussion. I think that's a good idea. Hold your friends close, your enemies closer. Talk to them so that we don't have an accidental war. So I think that's a good idea. And the other thing they want is they don't want this. They want to slow play this missile defense system that's being introduced into South Korea. And frankly, we shouldn't be doing that till the South Koreans have their own election in May. So let's not take away strategic patience and instead shoot for strategic haste. Let's take our time here and do it right.
Got it. All right, Jim Walsh, thanks for weighing in.